So, do you remember how you felt when GitHub and ChatGPT first appeared? I do. 3 years ago, I was just building a platform to teach developers to TDD and extreme programming, two things which I'm really fond of. And I'm also an early adopter, and a really solid one. So I started using these new AI tools to build the platform itself. And then I had a moment, because that was so great, it just came to my mind, what is the point on training developers to clean code if we don't know what will happen with them in 10 years, or if they even exist? So that really hit me hard, and that was kind of an identity crisis. So in the end, I let the idea go. I had to find out, is AI my enemy or my greatest ally? So hello everyone, I'm András Fincza, or Draven, how most of the folks call me. In the past 20 years, I've worn many hats. I was developer, tech lead, entrepreneur, even CTO. Most of my professional life I spent in immersive SAP managing a large development organization. But what matters today is that how I got into this AI development tools world, how I got into the agents and chatbots and so on. It started 2 years ago when I co-founded a startup called Experience. It was a really ambitious project, a video live broadcasting platform for amateur sports, starting with trail runners. Think complex video streams, real-time runner recognition, and vision AI, and real-time progress calculation, and so on. And the catch was that we were only just two very passionate developers, but mainly back-end and front-end developers, but we didn't know at least half of those things which I mentioned, especially AI. So this is why we hired AI. With his help, or with its help, we just built a full-blown production-ready scalable platform in just 1 year. We built an AI platform which processed thousands of videos and did the runner recognition in parallel. So that was amazing. And this is why I really want to show you today how ChatGPT, Copilot, and these tools helped us to just pull that off. But I know that this is a greenfield project, and you can do some of these parts with some vibe coding and so on, and this is why it's not over. Currently, I'm leading a development team at Xund, a digital health company. We build AI-powered applications, medical applications, to help patients understand their medical conditions and symptoms and direct them to the proper medical care. And I also brought my passion using AI development tools to this company. And now I am adapting it to a completely new scenario, because in Xund we have a large code base, a large monorepo developed for more than 7 years now, 1 million lines of code, more than 80 shared library services, and so on. So I also needed to learn a lot how to do that. And I also got some experience on that, which I can share with you. And also, as I mentioned, don't worry, we will talk about vibe coding a little bit, so we won't miss that as well. So the last 2-3 years really changed everything to me. So I told you that I'm in software development for 20 years, but that the changes in the last few years really made a new world to me. I learned that AI is not a threat. It is the most powerful teammate I've ever had. So let's set the mission. So when it comes to AI and software development, the opinions are, let's say, polarized. On one side, people and the headlines yelling that AI is coming for our jobs, Skynet is alive, total existential dread. On the other side, these are the classic eye roll take, it's just a fancy autocomplete, it's just guesses, it doesn't really code. But it usually comes from people who just tried it out once, had some bad experience, and gave up on that. So and I really understand. So as Berlin just said in the previous presentation, everything changes from week to week. It's really hard to follow the news, follow these things, and it's really easy to get lost in the noise, bouncing between panic and dismissal. But what if both these extremes just miss the point somehow? To explore that, I think let's let's have a quick detour into the world of chess. So, for centuries, humans ruled the game of chess. Even when the first chess programs appeared, they couldn't really beat very top players. Then came 1997. That was really a game changer, a turning point. IBM's Deep Blue just defeated Garry Kasparov, the reigning world champion. And it was really a shock. So a lot of people thought that it was the end of the human dominance in the chess scene, but Kasparov didn't give up. So he had a really bold idea. What if humans and machines can work together? So he just pioneered something called freestyle chess or center chess, meaning that the idea was that a single reasonably skilled human with a decent chess engine, they can really defeat any kind of supercomputer and grandmasters, and it really happened. So there were tournaments, and they consistently defeated these ones. And how it connects to where we are now is because I really believe that we are in software development right now in this place. So it's not really human versus AI. The real power is really human plus AI. It's not a replacement, it's an augmentation. So our mission is becoming this center developers, blending our skills with the AI suggestions and these tools. But becoming a center, it doesn't come naturally. It takes learning, trial, and error, just as you did with any programming languages or IDEs, what you just learned before. So let me show you how I just learned it and still learning this whole thing. See, there is one thing that always comes up, and even a lot of things changes in these AI development support tools. One thing really just remained, and it seems it will remain with us for some time. And it doesn't matter if you're using ChatGPT, Cursor, Tailwind, anything. This principle just applies across the board, and this is the importance of context. But to explain that, let's rewind a little bit and think of how I, and maybe you just tried out these tools for the first time. It started with just typing and hoped for magic. And sometimes it's really like magic. So it works, it generates really good stuff, but a lot of times, other times it gave me complete gibberish, irrelevant code, wrong logic, plain bad suggestions. And just like in this case, you can see that I just gave a really simple prompt. It doesn't matter what is this. It seems it should do something with the database, though it really hallucinated a file and the function which doesn't exist. And that's not good. And most of the people just give up on that. But think about that. We've been handed one of the most complex tools ever built to support software development, and yet we expect it to know somehow what we think and what we expect. You wouldn't do that with your teammate, with a junior teammate. You would guide them, you would add them context. You add context so they can gradually understand your expectations. And this is exactly the same with the AI. So the breakthrough for me came when I stopped treating these tools like a mind reader. I started to treat them as junior developers who needs a clear briefing to do good work. So I began feeding it with real context, variable context, writing in the Copilot era. So 2 years ago, it was mainly writing comments before the lines, good function names, really carefully named variables and so on, and it really helped a lot. So for example, in this case, if I add some more details, like 2 more lines here, also I provide one more context here. So there is an example, you can see base visit widget, you can do it really like this other one and use it for that. And now it's really provided a good code, which really serve us well. And this is how important context is. So the same thing, the same tool, but now I provided more context. Not a lot of context, but at least a good example how you can work, like how you would do with a teammate. And it's not just coding. You can you can do this principle, you can follow this principle in other parts. So for example, you can disguise yourself to other roles with this. I can say that be brave enough to step into roles you are not expert in, as long as you have some basic knowledge. So, for example, if you've ever been in our shoes when what we had at Expery is that you have no budget for a data scientist, then fake it and let the AI augment you to become some kind of data scientist. And even if you don't understand really fancy SQL array nestings and ML functions and so on, and possibly you won't understand the problem itself or all the science behind your problem, then if you provide really clear context and really clear goals, there is a great chance to have a success. So with ChatGPT, I was able to run light analysis in Expery on our data set. And for the runner recognition, it really helped us. So in just a few days, we could improve the runner recognition rate by 40–50%, which was amazing. See, what was the key? The key was that I learned how to write just a slightly better prompts with slightly better context. And you can also follow these really simple rules. So, for example, when I talk about context, I mean a lot. So, and that's not an unsurprising thing after what I just said. So, for example, I started to add the schemas for that. And I even didn't bother to just textualize or write out the structures because we just created them quickly in BigQuery. So I just made some photos of these BigQuery schemas and just dropped it into ChatGPT because it's a multimodal tool, so it can understand them well. The other thing which are really great is that you provide context. So in this case, I provided a few tables, but I also told ChatGPT which you should focus on. So they will have the global view on the things, but they will know what to focus on, and this is also really important. And there are other things, so it's really important to add all the required context. And one more is that it's always great if you can provide somehow the structure of the expected data. So what is the outcome you expect? If you follow these rules, you will really see a huge difference. So you will get a way more precise consultant, a way more productive tool. So this is the first thing I learned, and I think this is the first thing you should learn as well, is that context is everything. Whether you are using a chatbot, ChatGPT, Cursor, or another agent like Cursor or any tool, the single most important factor is this. You have to brief the AI properly. If it doesn't understand your expectation, it won't give you satisfying results. But these days, entire code bases can fit into the context. So today, there are, in the last 3 months maybe, so, because we are moving really fast now, it can fit into models context window, even if you have a really large repository. That means the code base itself becomes a context. But there's this thing that, is it a good thing? Because in your code base, there are a lot of good parts, and I'm sure that there are a lot of bad parts as well. There are those tests you wrote 5 years ago, you wanted to forget it, but you can't. You always wanted to improve on that, but you never had time. So, yeah, you have to be very specific to tell the AI which are the good parts. Because then it will learn all the bad parts as well, and you will be unsatisfied with the result, and you will say, hey, this is just an autocomplete. It's not really working. So the question is how to provide the context. One way is how I just showed you before. So you can just put everything into the prompt. You can just attach some examples, and that's it. Though it's not really scalable. And be honest, it's not really fun to do it every time. And but for the best results using these AI tools, the AI really needs some clear, high-quality rules and a lot of examples, just as a human. And this is where context files comes in. Think of them as really little vaults where you stash all your best stuff. They are just simple files in your code base where you just put all the best practices, examples, steps what you want to follow solving different kind of problems. So you just put all these things, and then you just link it when you need one. Basically anything can be there, which can help the AI or even any of your teammates if they just read it through to solve something, to contribute somehow to your code base. And these files, you can write these context files about anything. So you can write like, okay, how to write tests, how to write router, I don't know, how to, how to review a PR, for example, or just things what Draven always forget. So this kind of stuff, anything, you can go wild. And when you need them, you just attach it to your prompt. Let me show you one. So for example, this is one I started to use for one of our services. And it's really just summarize a lot of things. I don't encourage you to read it through, but you can see that this is a well-structured, or at least a structured file. It's a Markdown. I really prefer Markdown because I can read that, but some folks really vote for XML. And what's in it? It really depends on you, everything what matters. So do you prefer unit or integration tests? So you can just command, you can just direct the AI, the tool to follow your principles. And the good thing is, you don't have to write it from scratch. I never wrote any of these. I have quite a few these kind of context files. I never wrote one. So I asked ChatGPT to write it for me. Because I just told him, hey, this is how I like to develop. This is the books I like, and so on. So let's write a convention file of that. And also to Cursor, okay, look at this package and try to find out the practices from that. And then I just looked it into the file and said, hey, that's a bad practice. So I just deleted it and then tried to find it in the code base where it just inspired by, which we should fix. So this is just a draft. What it means, you can adjust it, you can fix it, you can iterate on that. And even if you are really untrust the AI to generate code, you can still just use these files for a lot of different things. So, because having conventions, having rules for development, contribution guides, it's always good. So, for example, if you are onboarding a teammate, you can just spare a 40-minute talk about this is why we are doing it that way, kind of speeches. So, if you don't trust AI, this is a good start. You can just try it out there and then slowly got trust with these tools. So yes, context is everything. And once you have it, then you can now just start creating real magic. Now I want to share you how you can seriously level up your development workflow with these tools, with context files and so on. In my case, the agent is Cursor. I didn't try out Tailwind. I really like Cursor. Every week it has a huge changelog going in, so for some time I think it will fit my need. Let's see. So the first workflow is just basically the programming itself. If you have a certain coding style, then you can try to do it with the AI, together with the AI, pair up with the tool. So for example, I'm really fond of test-driven development, so this is why that was one of the first things to come to my mind, that would be really great to do it together. And especially because when I first started to use these tools, then it started to generate these 5 pages long or 5 screen long codes, and it was really hard to understand. But one of the fundamental thing in TDD is that you should go line by line or step by step. So in very, very small steps, baby steps, and every step you can just check out whether it will be good or not. How I do? I have a tdd.mdc. This is the Cursor rules file. I put it into the Cursor rules directory, and it basically just defines the process how you should do TDD. So it's really just how you can read it out from a book. And it will just guide the AI, guide Cursor to do what I want. I really want to emphasize a few things. how I emphasized a few things for Cursor. So you can see these things that it is crucial to meticulously verify that the failure occurs precisely for the expected reason. That is mind-blowing a little bit, I know. Or minimal code, write the absolute minimum. These are those lines which try to focus the AI, try to regulate it, because how it just got into my documents is that the AI just rebelled on me and it didn't try to do what I wanted it to do. So this is how I regulated it. And now it's really, yeah, we are a really good pair. Now, let me share you how it looks like in action. So we start with a very simple initial prompt. In this case, I want the get time for distance function to cover a null division problem, because if you just pass the 0 to the second parameter, there will be a problem. So I want to cover that. So I add the TDD MDC, so the TDD convention file to the context, and I just run the prompt. So it starts working. If you know how TDD works, it has phases. The first phase is the red phase. It's called red phase because you just write now a test, and the test should fail. This is one of the most distinctive thing of TDD. And now this is what we just saw. So Cursor just wrote the first test, and it seems to be really simple. It exactly does what I want. And it stopped because one important thing, and this is the meticulously very, very super important thing, is to stop every time and run the test. And it's now just waiting for my acknowledgement to run the test. And now we run the test, and it will fail as expected. And it's really important that it fails for the good reason. And this is also something which is in the guide for Cursor, so it checks back that it failed for the good reason. It's really important in TDD. So we can move on to the green state. Green state is when we just implement the implementation part to the code. So this is, yes, really simple one. So now we are in the green phase, we have an implementation, and now Cursor is waiting for my approval for the next test run. I approve it, and now it goes on. Everything is green, so we are good to go. The third part of TDD is the refactor stage. So we move on, or Cursor is moving on to the refactor, and it tells you that this example is really silly and small, so we don't need to refactor anything, and I approve, I agree with that, so this is how it works. And this is now some kind of, so this is the daily work now, how I try to work with the AI, and a lot of times it's really great, it's really fun, a lot of times it's better than just working alone, and every time, every week, how I learn into these kind of things, I'm just speeding up. But that's not all. So there are other kind of workflows where you can really use these. So the next workflow is code reviews. And code reviews is just because it really shines in that. And it's really easy to run and really cheap to run a code review on any PR or MR. So how I do that is that I usually initiate the code review with that one using another context file for that, where I just added all the rules for this. Tell review the current branch. I also added the branch to the context. This time, Cursor will also compare the current branch to the main branch. So I show you how it looks like. So we again have this code review MDC, so the code review context file with all the steps it has to follow. It's really structured and so on. I want to emphasize a few things, so I really put those things there, which is really important to me for a code review. You can have a linter, so with a linter you can just check a lot of things, but there are things you cannot really check with linter. So for example, measuring code quality. Measuring code quality is always a debatable thing. Some people believe that you can measure, some people not. There are some things for sure. I really don't believe, for example, in test code coverage, because yeah, it's really easy to just miss something by looking at just the test code coverage. It doesn't mean anything. The only thing which means something is if you have 0% of test code coverage. So the good thing with these tools using for for code review is that it will understand the context. If you give them the context, it will understand, it will compare the intended behavior to your tests, for example. And this is, you can see here, is that validated behavior is properly tested. So it's really specifically told, I told them. See, the other thing at the bottom, that does the code do what it claims to do? Pretty important. And this is how it works. And obviously there is a full block of security practices, asking security practices in the same document. And at the end of the file, there is an expected summary checklist. This is a good practice if you want to have these command-like MDC files or rule files. And we expect to mark all these points at the end of the code review. Let's see now how a code review looks like. That's really a fresh example, a code review from today. And this PR was not ready yet. I just tried it out on that to have a fresh example. So it wasn't finished, and Cursor that picked up on that. It even highlighted some parts which is needed to be adjusted. But it also called out a few good things as well. So this is a really great thing, that it started to give balanced, helpful feedback to you. So this is how it can work. Let's move on to another one, to the next workflow. One of my favorite is bug hunting. So one of my first wow moments with Cursor was when I first used the bug finder. We were working on a branch with one of my colleagues, and we had to update a really complex component with a new piece of data. This part of the code base had really dense type and interface system. This new data had to be added into a lot of different layers, so to validators, API schema, interfaces, and so on. And naturally, we just missed the spot. And it caused a really sporadically appearing problem. It was really hard to find. We just struggled a lot with that. Basically, we struggled for 2 hours just to find where is the problem, why it happens, how we can reproduce, and so on. But we eventually fixed it on my colleague's computer. A few hours later, I went back to my machine, and I saw that I have the previous version of the code. There is no fix here, and I thought, hey, that's a really great chance to try out Cursor's bug finder and see how much it does take it to just find it, or it won't find, I don't know. And I ran it, and it just found the exact problem in 1 minute. So from one part, I was really impressed. From the other part, I was really mad that we spent that much time on that. And to be fair, this bug is really an interface-related one. Maybe the models are really great on finding these, but it still nailed it. And because it's really cheap, if you have a subscription, you can just run it and check it, and maybe it finds something, maybe not. A lot of times, it doesn't find really relevant topics. Sometimes it finds something which is a good point of conversation between us. And sometimes it just flags something fishy. So this is how it became, again, one of my daily tools, which I run on branches which I touch. So AI tools, agents are really powerful allies, but let's address the elephant in the room, security and privacy. It's a valid concern because it will send your data to third-party servers. So it will send part of the data or sometimes all of the full code base. So you have to trust these tools the same way as you trust GitHub or GitLab. Make your code safe there and storing it. So how do you wield this power of using these tools and keep our secrets safe? First, the basics still apply, so you need to just keep the security hygiene, what you usually have for your coding. And most importantly, never ever commit anything secret into the code base. So let's use environment variables, configuration managers, secret managers, anything, whatever your standard practice is, what you have to use. Don't put anything secret in the code base. The second is you can leverage on these tools security, built-in security features. So a lot of times they are using gitignore to just ignore these files, but some tools like Cursor have their own ignore files, like Cursor ignore, where you can specify those parts which you really want to keep safe. So, for example, if you have one very super sensitive logic in some folder, then you can add it and it won't look at that. The other thing is that you can think of the sensitivity of the source code what you have. So a lot of companies, and maybe you are using a lot of open source code where you can just see the source code in GitHub. So basically, that would tell us that code may be not the most important secret what you have. So data and infrastructure details and a lot of other things, sometimes way more important than actually the code, which anyway changes every week. So protect those instead of the code. That's one way of thinking of that. And with that, we arrive to the last mission. Nothing show better how fast this AI scene, dev scene is than the appearance of and the rise of the vibe coding. The term only appeared in February, and still now everyone talking about that. And also not many trends can trigger such strong debates and reactions so quickly. What is vibe coding? It's basically a development style when you just fully trust the AI to code. You describe what you want, you have some chit-chat with the tool, and then you will get an end-to-end application. And you can look at the code, but honestly, you probably shouldn't, because it will really remind you those codes when you wanted to implement, I don't know, a bubble sort or something like that while you were drunk, so that's not that great. And in just the last few months, there were a lot of products appeared in this scene, like Lovable, like Firebase Studio from Google. But this is not new. So this is the same. Vibe coding is the same as using a cursor and just hitting the tab button and don't care of what the AI just does. And I also did it for years now, but there was no name for that until now. And yeah, at first glance, it really feels reckless what you are actually running. But there's the thing, there are some great use cases where you can use vibe coding. Just two typical examples. One, the first case, for example, in this prompt, you want to just fetch some data from a CSV, and it will have some URLs. You download these URLs. There will be HTML files. You just parse them somehow, and then make a spreadsheet out of that, and maybe upload to somewhere. So these kind of things. One thing. This is exactly or really close to one task which I had to do a couple of weeks ago, and I used Firebase Studio for it, and just in 1 hour I could really generate a really good script for that. It was not a script; it was an application with UI and everything, and I could also with the UI check out the data if it's good, if it's not, and it could upload it even not just to a CSV, but it could upload it to a Google spreadsheet. And that was amazing. I wouldn't have to do that in 1 hour. The other thing is from before, in Experibase, we had to use a lot of the FFmpeg. If you know that this is really something you don't want to parameterize, or is it? Yeah, I mean, the documentation itself is something which I think the LLMs struggle with, but they can just generate the code to run these for really not that complex things, but yeah, this is, for example, one example. Process somehow the video, cut out frames, do some processing on the frame and so on, so I don't need to learn that, because for example, at that time, we were just experimenting what if we just make the videos black and white. Will the OCR of runner recognition, bib recognition, bib number recognition better? And that was the way. And it turned out that it doesn't have too much, so we just dropped the whole thing. So that kind of vibe coding, when you just experiment with something, this is really great. Or you have a one-time thing and you just drop it, and if you need something like that the next time, you just regenerate the same application. That is really great. But let's be clear, I would never use it for this approach for production software. The code is not maintainable, not testable, not safe. So let's wrap up. With the help of AI, you can really become a true full-stack developer. You can even mix with other roles, data scientist, DevOps, whatever the mission requires. And just like in Cantor chess, a skilled enough human with the right machine could beat get the grandmasters. You don't need to be a very expert on some stuff, on some parts of software development. With partnering up with the AI, you will be augmented to do that. But here's the critical part. You have to be very critical with that. AI always requires human supervision, like you saw it in the TDD work, for example, I just did. So everything was about that. So for a production-grade software, you must stay in control, understand what the AI is doing, and ready to step in every time it just do something mistake, because it will. You cannot let it work alone. And there is one more thing. This topic brings up sometimes, but we don't talk enough about that. I believe that the current AI tools are not really good for junior developers to use, because they often lack the critical thinking and technical expertise to be really critical of what the AI just generates. So this is a really needed competence, because you have to just feel somehow when something is fishy. You can learn from the AI, but only by adapting your existing knowledge to something new, like how we just did that experience time with writing Dart or Python code, which were really new to us. We knew how to write good code, clean code, structured code, and it just brought us the Python and Dart fundamentals for writing a code. So AI is not a great teacher for learning something completely from scratch, but if you have the base knowledge, it can really boost you up. And just quickly, let's go back to where we started with Cantor chess. So now we are at the point in software development where a human with AI is clearly better than a human alone. Maybe not in all use cases, but definitely there are use cases where it's better. In chess, the AI eventually just became stronger than human. But AI is a very simplified, or chess is a very simplified thing than software development. So what will happen in 10 years, we don't know. I don't know, no one knows. So maybe we extinct, maybe there will be a plateau sometime. Right now, definitely there is no plateau with the weekly news. But here's what we know right now is that human plus AI is always better than just a human. So this is why companies like Shopify, for example, started to propagate something called reflexive AI and really encourage anyone to live with that, because developers who learn to work with the AI critically, habitually, effectively, then they will have a serious edge. So the takeaway is that AI is your teammate, not your replacement. Human oversight is non-negotiable. AI can really assist you, but you are responsible for everything, every outcome. Always understand, verify, and guide what it creates. Context is everything. If the AI doesn't know what you want, it won't deliver what you need. Build the AI reflex, use it regularly, use it critically, experiment, learn its strengths and weaknesses, and make it part of the daily workflow. Stay curious. You can stay skeptical, but let AI be your co-pilot. And don't switch to autopilot. This is really important. Because Skynet must not get push access. That was all. That was everything. Thank you very much.